Hello, this is Greg Allison with Green Greg's Garden and Worm Farm, coming to you from my home office on the 23rd of October, 2019. And I'll be posting this on the 24th. Once again, PG&E is propagating the Calipowerocalypse. Indeed, we have 179,000 customers in Northern California that are getting their power turned off once again. 179,000 customers in 17 counties. This appears to be the new norm. Every time it gets dry, the breeze blows, you're going to go without power. Your power goes. Friends, is this what you want? Is this what you expect? The board of directors of PG&E have gotten big fat bonuses this year, like on the order of $11 million a person. Shouldn't they have invested some of that money into upgrading the infrastructure to make you safer? What about all the money they put into the smart grid technologies, the technologies for running their LiDAR helicopters? Instead of investing so much money in controlling you, shouldn't they have invested a little bit of money in making it safer for you with their actual power delivery systems instead of all this monitoring stuff? Why couldn't they not have improved the power lines, cut limbs, clear the area below the lines? They do that in most of the rest of the country. They do it here. Why couldn't they have done it there? What is going on with PG&E? I don't know. It seems that in retribution for the losses they got from being sued over the burning of Paradise, PG&E burned Paradise, right? So I don't know, strange stuff about that fire, but in any event, hey, this is not a new thing. California's had winds and dry spells for decades, and even where they cut the power off, they're still having fires. So, what is going on, California? Is this something you're willing to accept? Is this a warning shot to the rest of the country? I mean, what happens in California typically spreads. Is it the case that other power companies will start shutting off power for any little breeze that blows and anything they might deem a liability? Here's the thing that I would take away. And one, you might be a little safer in that you're being goaded perhaps, and maybe you should take this as an incentive to get off the grid. They don't want you to. Yeah, they pass laws that say you've got to be on the grid. You can't get off. Well, you can have it going up to your breaker and just throw it and have an independent power system on the other side of your power box. I don't know. But it's time to fight City Hall. It's time to insist en masse. And once enough of you form organizations and do this, they can't stop you. Go off the grid. Deny them the revenue that you give them. Why should you be paying them so much money for them to get these big fat bonuses when they will not protect you, when they will not cover you, when they will not give you the power that you need? And furthermore, they're not hardening their grid. And this grid not being hardened puts you at risk. You realize that EMP or a CME, a solar coronal mass ejection, could take enough power on the power lines that it could potentially burn your house. And most of these chintzy little devices they sell that claim that they will protect your house will not cover that. There may be some few of the more robust ones that will help a little bit, but they are not good enough to cover you for a full-blown CME or EMP effect that could burn your house. Remember, telegraph stations were burned in the Carrington event with far less wire than what we see today in our homes. I mean, we're talking, they had big wires that shouldn't have burned easy, typically coming in through a big glass insulator, which is just big. Back then, it had just been a big chunk of glass with a hole in the middle, bringing it inside the wall of the telegraph station and back out, not running through the walls all over the place and ceilings and floors and everywhere else. We have power today in our homes. Don't you feel good about that? Maybe this is a good warning shot for you to get off the grid, not just in California, but for the rest of the country. Why are we empowering? Why are we enriching these power companies that do nothing for us? Go off the grid. Go on your own. Get independent. That's my advice. Yeah, okay, Greg, it's not easy. True, I grant that. It takes time. It takes money. But now's a good time to start. Get that in your mind. Start thinking, how can I go off the grid? Maybe the answer is some people will form micro communities. And some of you want to go solar. Just remember that for EMP and CME, the most susceptible part of the solar system is a wire between the solar array and your inverter. And the inverter can have filtering devices put on its input that would protect it. And those wires are not as long as the wires in your power transmission systems on the grid. So it would not be as susceptible, at least to CMEs, which are longer frequency, than EMPs have shorter frequencies, and so a lot of things would be susceptible to EMP. But at least that would fit your CME, solar coronal mass ejection power susceptibility. Let me define EMP as electromagnetic pulse, typically generated by what we call a high altitude nuclear burst. That you do not want. So this is, and hopefully you won't see that, but quite frankly, you are not protected. You are not covered for these kind of events. The power companies could do it. The cost of doing it is not that great per household, but they just refuse to do it. But they are happy to give themselves $11 million bonuses, right? So think about that. And here's the other thing that a lot of you hadn't thought about. I have on this channel been talking about food shortages. I've been talking about upcoming price increases, that the price of food was skyrocketing. Why? I started talking about this in the spring because we had such a wet spring. We had hurricanes and just a lot of spring rain that flooded the Midwest and other crop producing areas, that flooded some crops that were already planted, which had to be replanted, and delayed, especially delayed a lot of plants. So the planting season got started late in a lot of places. And I warned at that time that there might be this year early season frost. And I did this because this fits the pattern. The late season rains, early season frost fits the patterns of what we started to see last year and the patterns that were typically ascribed to solar minimums. And in particular, it looks suspiciously like it could be a grand solar minimum. Some of you don't want to hear that, but look through the geological record. The data's there. And we are in a period that looks suspiciously like it just might be in that pattern. That said, I predicted this spring, early season frost, early season snows, and they're here. And what that means is the crop seasons got shortened on both sides. But how does this pertain to California, my friends? Easily. California happens to be the second largest state in the production of rice. Rice is a very important food commodity in the United States, not to mention all kinds of fruits and vegetables and livestock too. A lot of the wells that the livestock depends on is dependent on PG&E power to pump water for livestock and for irrigation. So fortunately, most of the fruit growing season has passed, but rice requires drying. If you can't run the dryers to dry the rice after you harvest it, you can't harvest it. And this is rice harvesting season between the last set of power outages and the set of power outages that we're having now from PG&E, and who knows when they're going to happen next year. This is happening along the time of the rice harvest. And if you can't get this rice dried, it's going to have to stay in the field. In the field, it could be rotting. So I would expect potentially a drop in the production of rice. And with California having 550,000, a little bit better than 500,000 acres of rice planted, that is a very significant impact. 500,000 acres of rice. And that is something to worry about. That is something to be concerned about. This year, next year, whenever the wind blows and it's dry in California, apparently, and that happens to typically coincide with the rice harvesting season. So what is this going to mean in the long term? Farming is a very marginal business. The capital cost for farming, the investment required per unit output of production, is the highest of any industry in the United States, except for maybe the Amish, who don't put a lot of money in all this capital equipment. They put in labor. They work the old-fashioned way. You know, Amish farmers are actually profitable, more so than big ag. That's interesting, but they work. That said, the problem with the big ag is that they are very marginal. Big ag has lost money last year This year is looking to be worse for the farmers, especially family farmers. It is horrible. They're having, what few family farmers are left are having a terrible time. And the corporate farms are not doing well either. So this is something you got to consider. How many of these may go out of business? How many of them are being marginalized? What's going to happen? USDA is up to now been telling everybody we're having bumper crops. Even though lots of us have been saying, But what happens? It means the farmers have sold their stuff cheap, and the commodity traders will sell it high. Bought cheap, sell high. The commodity traders make all the money. The banksters, they get away with this stuff, and the farmers suffer. But you will still pay the higher prices. You may suffer the shortages. And of course, in this country, we have a little more money in our pockets. We won't suffer like some areas in the world might. But in terms of starvation, it doesn't take great price increases for people in third world countries to go hungry. So bear all that in mind. But in the United States, as I predicted, the prices of food are expected to skyrocket. And this is just one more nail in the coffin. It's one more straw on the camel's back. And our agricultural system is being stressed. You don't have to agree with me for causes. It doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is it has been stressed. Whatever you want to ascribe those causes to matters not in the end in terms of the fact that we're having stress. It doesn't matter how you prepare and deal with it next season. As a farmer, what do you do? What do you do personally? For you, I would suggest, I would consider, one, buying stockpiles of food while the prices are still low. I have links below to My Patriot Supplies where you can get 25-year long-term food storage items for about, food for about $6 a day, a couple bucks a meal. You can't beat that if you buy it in quantities like of a year at a time. And get it now while the prices are cheap. My Patriot Supply. Check my link below, support my channel, and especially grow your own food. You can grow indoors, even the coldest and worst of weather, cold, wet, whatever. And microgreens are a way to produce food quickly. True Leaf Market sells all the seeds and supplies you need to be able to do that. Links below. Also for growing outdoors, True Leaf Market sells heirloom seeds so that if the grid goes down, which it might, I've talked about CMEs, EMPs. I got tons of videos on those type of topics, and that would be a good place to go to get the seeds for heirloom seeds. You need heirloom seeds so that once you plant the seeds, you can harvest, save seeds, and replant them. Plants that are not heirloom, these hybrid seeds are no good for replanting. You're not going to get back a plant worth 2 cents that will grow decent vegetables. So heirloom seeds is the watchword. True Leaf Market has those. And if you want to be able to grow your own gardens and recycle your kitchen and lawn waste and whatever, paper, in order to make the best garden soil, better than potting soil, or you won't even need fertilizer, maybe a little minerals, or you use wood chips for your growing base, tree litter. I'll cover these kind of topics on my channel about raising worms. Buy worms. I sell worms. www.greengregswormfarm.com, greengregs.com. Links below again. So check these out, and bear in mind that we're in for tough times. And this may be a good warning shot to you to consider getting off the grid now. Consider how to do that. Consider how to make yourself safe should times get worse. And I would add and repeat once again that what we're seeing today in California right now, this current outage, is just 2 days. And this is kind of like a Sunday school picnic, just a little warning shot compared to what would happen if we have a nationwide grid outage that could last for months, years, or maybe never even be repaired in the case of an EMP or CME. If you take out all those transformers, it would take so many years to replace them all. 18 months from the time you order one to get it on your loading dock. Let's say order one, get it on your loading dock. That implies that you got an infrastructure of the means to order, the means to pay, and the means to ship and install, which are all dependent on the grid. How are you going to do that? Especially when so many have to be replaced if you have a nationwide or worldwide problem like a CME. Friends, that ain't happening. The production capacity isn't there with the grid running. So without the grid, How do you get there? Yeah, you won't see it in your lifetime. And like I said, congressional task force that was mandated that my friend Dr. Peter Vincent Pryor was involved in had estimated that 9 out of 10 people would be gone within a year. I would submit that they failed to account for the spent fuel rod pools at the nuclear power plants. Now, the nuclear reactors will actually probably be fairly safe. The spent fuel rod pools are the problem. And they can inject boron and all kind of things. They are really set up to take care of the reactors. But spent fuel rod pools is a whole different matter. And there's actually a lot more radioactive material there. It's just not quite as hot as what's in the reactor, but it's hot enough that it's equivalent to about 300 times all the nuclear warhead radioactive material in the world. Not trivial. And it would go up in smoke when the cooling water is not pumped on it any longer. And you better have some means to deliver fuel to keep those backup generators running. And with the grid down, how do you do that? So they did not account for that in their study. They did not account for the fact that most farmers don't grow their own food anymore. They grow market food. They don't have gardens that grow the food to eat. And hunters, forget it. My friends, if all you got is big game rifles, you're not going to be eating in a few months. So I've covered that in my other videos. Why most preppers will die and such things. So take care of yourself. Learn how to survive, thrive, and stay out of the hive. Many videos I have done cover these topics. I cover how to eat wild edibles. I cover how to grow your garden indoors and outdoors. I'll be doing more aquaponics and greenhouse videos in the future, and more gardening videos, all these things. So please, if you're not already subscribed to my channel, click the subscribe, click the update notification bell, and I wish you the best. I hope none of this stuff happens, and I hope that it doesn't happen. I do actually have another channel that's far more optimistic called Galactic Gregs. But so let's hope that the worst doesn't come to pass. You should always hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. And some of you guys are really getting a good taste of that out in California. And hopefully we'll all take this to heart and look and learn by the examples that you guys are having to suffer through. And well, I reward the power companies. My friends, get off the grid. And thank you for watching.